We begin in the year 1899, where the great European nations are on the brink of a great war as new weapons are being created. In London, a group of policemen are stunned to see the first tank collide with the Bank of England, destroying everything in the halls while suffering no damage. The tank uses its cannon to break open the vault door before the terrorists come out with their leader, Fanton. There are many treasures in the vault, but what Fanton truly desires are the blueprints for the Venice Foundation. Days later, Britain accuses Germany of the theft, but soon after, Fanton and his men appear in Berlin, kidnapping a group of scientists and blowing up all the airships at the facility. Countries begin to point fingers at each other, and war becomes imminent. A few days later, in Kenya, Reed is looking for Alan, a famous hero. An old man who proclaims himself to be Alan starts sharing some old adventure stories, but when Reed mentions he works for the British government and they need help, the real Alan reveals himself. It turns out he often uses a friend to protect his identity. Reed explains that he is trying to prevent the next world war, but Alan refuses to help because he hasn't fought since he lost his family. At that moment, a group of strange men enters and asks for Alan, only to shoot the old man thinking he is the real one. Alan immediately opens fire and a shootout begins, but it is difficult to kill these men because they are wearing armor and equipped with the latest automatic weapons. After landing some very precise shots to take the men down, Alan goes out to fight them hand to hand, dodging bullets and knives to defeat the thugs using furniture, and even a horn on the wall. One of the thugs manages to escape, so Alan goes after him, not noticing the briefcase they left behind. As a sniper, Alan stops the thug by shooting from afar, but before he can interrogate him, the man takes his own life using poison. Suddenly, the tavern explodes, and once the war is threatening the peace he has fought for in Africa, Alan agrees to help Reed. Later in England, Reed introduces Alan to his boss Moriarty, who explains that he is forming a team known as the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen to stop Fanton. Alan also meets the navigator and captain named Nemo, whose ship will take them to Venice in 4 days because clues indicate that Fanton will attack there next. Suddenly, a voice speaks from an empty chair, and some papers begin to move. It turns out the other team member is Rodney Skinner, a thief who made a serum to become invisible but has yet to find a cure. To be less irritating, Skinner puts on a jacket and face paint so the others can see him. At that moment, another team member arrives. Her name is Mina, and she is a specialist chemist, but Alan is not happy to have a woman on the team. The group starts to walk, and Nemo impresses everyone with the latest automotive technology. The driver is his first mate, Ishmael. As they leave, they do not notice they are being followed. Eventually, they arrive at the dock to recruit the infamous Dorian Gray, who only lets them in because Mina is his former companion. After noticing that Dorian has an empty frame on the wall, Alan shares that a healer once blessed him for saving the village, so it is said that Africa will never let him die. He also remembers meeting Dorian as a child, but Dorian has not aged a day. Dorian avoids all explanations because he is not interested in joining the team, but the conversation is interrupted when a group of armed men steps out of the shadows alongside Fanton, who asks the League to join him. As Fanton speaks, Alan notices that one of the thugs looks different. He is the pursuer from before, who immediately opens fire at the enemy. Chaos ensues in the room as everyone starts to fight and reveals their abilities in the process. Dorian is immortal, so he simply walks through the bullets to kill the men with his sword, letting his body heal. Nemo uses a sword and martial arts, while Alan uses his own firearm, and the pursuer does too, who turns out to be an American secret agent named Tom Sawyer. Skinner takes off the jacket and paint to hit the thugs with things like books. Fanton flees, and Alan tries to stop him, but he is intercepted by a thug. As they fight, Tom tries to pursue Fanton, who manages to escape by jumping out the window into the river. The men think the fight is over, but there is one last man hiding, and he takes Mina hostage. However, Mina's eyes suddenly turn red, and she bites the man to kill him, drinking his blood. It turns out she is the widow of Jonathan Harker, who was part of the team that killed Dracula. Then Dorian agrees to join the team because he took this attack personally, and Alan lets Tom join as well. Tom was sent by the American government because they are concerned that the war will reach the Americas too. The team's next stop is Paris, so Nemo introduces the team to his ship, Nautilus, which can also operate as a submarine. When they finally arrive in the city, Alan and Tom go after a huge monster known as Mr. Hyde, who has been terrorizing the locals lately. With calibrated shots, Alan lures Hyde to a very specific location while teaching Tom to waste fewer bullets, calling his crazy shooting American style. Hyde eventually stops on a rooftop, and Alan shoots to make him fall straight into a net they set up earlier. Once back on the Nautilus, a large number of crew members are needed to restrain Hyde, and even then, the monster still manages to throw some of them off. As they try to calm him down, Skinner falls, and Dorian helps him, only to scratch him in the process. Alan manages to make Hyde stop by offering a deal. If he helps them, he will receive a pardon from the Queen and can return to London. Hyde agrees, and at that moment, the effects of the mutagen formula he took to transform finally wear off, and he painfully turns back into his true form, the shy Dr. Henry Jekyll. Now that the team is complete, the ship activates submarine mode and begins its journey to Venice using a copy of the blueprints Fanton stole. Now the team needs to learn to get along with one another. Alan soon gets irritated with Skinner for not wearing his coat to make his presence known, and Mina is disturbed to discover that Nemo worships the goddess of death. However, Alan is more afraid of her than any religious statue. One afternoon, after the Nautilus switches back to ship mode, Alan tries to teach Tom to waste fewer bullets and shoot more accurately, but when Tom asks about his dead son, Alan leaves. Meanwhile, Nemo and Ishmael are surprised to find dust in the control room well before a book closes on its own behind them. They hand the dust to Mina, who analyzes it and discovers it is the dust that photographers use to create flash. Dorian visits her and shares his secret. The missing portrait in his house is magical and ages instead of him. He cannot look at it, or he will lose his powers. Dorian also flirts with Mina and shares a drink, but when the glass breaks, he cuts his finger. The smell of blood provokes Mina's hormones, and they end up kissing, which makes Henry jealous as he watches from a distance. His inner Hyde reminds him that he could be noticed by women if he drank the formula again, and he even gets aggressive. But before he can lose control, Nemo interrupts him. The captain says he does not want a monster loose on his ship, and Henry reminds him that he has a dark past as a pirate, so he cannot speak. Henry then returns to his room and becomes worried to discover that one of his vials containing the formula is missing. He immediately alerts Alan and accuses Skinner of having stolen it, as neither of them has heard from him in a while. When they finally arrive in Venice, there is a carnival going on, and looking at the blueprints, the team guesses that Fanton is about to blow up the city. The League prepares to start searching for the explosives, but as soon as they touch the ground, the bombs explode, and buildings begin to crumble in a domino effect. They must destroy a specific building to stop him, so Tom takes Nemo's automobile and goes out with Alan, Dorian, and Mina. But Henry refuses to go because he is afraid to unleash Hyde. As the team drives through the streets, Fanton's men surround them and open fire. Dorian thinks Skinner let them know they were coming and starts to run. Alan and Tom try to shoot back, but there are too many men, so Mina jumps from the car and scales the wall with her powers to quickly feed on all the thugs mercilessly. As the buildings continue to crumble and start damaging the ship, Alan sees Fanton nearby and jumps as well to go after him. Tom keeps driving alone, and after dodging many falling debris, he finally finds the right building and fires a flare. Then Nemo fires a rocket that destroys that building and finally puts an end to the domino effect. When the explosion happens, the car flips over and Tom gets trapped underneath it. On the ship, Dorian reveals that he is the real spy and shoots Ishmael. Meanwhile, Alan follows Fanton to a cemetery, and they exchange blows. Fanton stabs Alan in the shoulder, and Alan retaliates, causing the mask to fall and reveal his identity. Alan then discovers that the enemy is actually Moriarty. Fanton flees, and Alan throws the knife back at him, but it is not enough to stop him. After that, the team returns to the ship and finds Ishmael dying, who uses his last breath to tell them about Dorian. At that moment, the exploration module of the ship exits and shows Dorian going away to find Fanton. The League immediately begins to follow him with the ship, and during the journey, they find a recording left by Dorian. Fanton's voice begins to play, explaining that Reed works for him too, and that he sent him to assemble the League on purpose so that Dorian could obtain a sample of his abilities. Dorian stole the vial containing Henry's formula, took Mina's blood with the broken glass, took Skinner's skin when he scratched him, and photographed Nemo's technology. Alan was recruited because he was the only one capable of capturing Hyde. With these samples, he would be able to build super soldiers to sell during the war. As he listens, Henry realizes that his inner Hyde is in pain because of a strange frequency in the recording, and at that moment, Fanton announces that the ship will explode when the recording ends. And that is exactly what happens, and the entire ship trembles as water begins to flood the engine room and drag some crew members. Nemo cannot bring the Nautilus back to the surface because of this, so he orders his men to seal the engine room with the men inside for the greater good. Hyde convinces Henry that they can help, so he runs into the room before it is sealed and gets the formula to transform underwater. He then swims to the bottom and, using his strength, pulls the levers and opens the valves, which immediately drains the ship and allows it to surface. As everyone tries to organize things, they receive a Morse code message from Skinner, who snuck into the module with Dorian and is now sending directions for the team to follow. Eventually, they arrive in northern Mongolia, where they discover Fanton's secret fortress. They hide in a cave to wait for Skinner, who arrives with a disturbing report. The fortress is huge, and the kidnapped scientists are working in factories 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to make super soldiers and replicate Nemo's inventions. As the team makes a plan, Dorian asks Fanton for his painting, revealing that Fanton stole it just to make him work for him. Now that he has regained it, Dorian refuses to fight again. Soon the League arrives at the fortress and takes down the guards outside with their powers. They sneak inside, and Skinner starts placing explosives around the factory while Hyde, Nemo, and their crew free the scientists' families, but unfortunately, they are found by an entire army of guards. A shootout soon begins, but Nemo's weapons do nothing because the enemy is wearing full armor. Hyde uses a huge metal door to deflect the bullets, giving Nemo the chance to fight the guards in the lab with his sword and free the scientists as well. Meanwhile, Mina finds Dorian in his room and they start a fight with blades, but no matter how much they cut each other, their wounds keep regenerating. Suddenly, Mina gets distracted noticing the magical portrait, so Dorian uses the opportunity to pin her to the bed with his sword. However, he fails to hit her heart, so Mina surprises him from behind and impales him to the wall with his own sword. Then she forces him to look at his portrait, which breaks the spell, and Dorian regains all the years the painting took from him until he dies. Alan and Tom go looking for Moriarty, who was in possession of the box with all the League's samples. They manage to corner him, but unfortunately, a guard surprises them, and they have to dodge an attack, allowing Fanton to escape with the box. The duo immediately goes after him and, in one of the hallways, they bump into an invisible man who suddenly attacks them because it is not Skinner. While Alan continues to pursue Fanton, Tom stays behind to fight this new invisible man, but he keeps wasting too many bullets. At that moment, an armored soldier arrives and uses a flamethrower to begin burning everything in the room. But this time, the real Skinner distracts him and ends up catching fire too. Tom quickly seizes the moment to hit the enemy with a torch, causing the gas tank to explode and killing him. Afterward, Tom checks on Skinner, who is burned, only to be captured by the other invisible man. At the same time, Alan finds Fanton in a dark room, and they start fighting, exchanging a flurry of blows until Fanton falls and Alan grabs an axe, ready to finish it all. Back with Nemo, he manages to get all the scientists out while Hyde protects them, but one of the guards steals some formula from the lab and drinks more than he should. He transforms into such a powerful monster that Hyde and Nemo have difficulty fighting against him, even as a team. At that moment, Hyde changes back into Henry, so he and Nemo have to run. The monster and Alan are about to make their kills at the same time, but suddenly Skinner's explosives detonate and the building begins to crumble. Hyde and Nemo run outside as the monster is killed by the collapsing debris. Back to Alan. When he tries to stop Fanton again, the enemy shows him that his invisible man has taken Tom, so Alan turns around and quickly shoots to save his protege, but Fanton stabs him in the back before jumping out of the building. As Alan's glasses are now broken, Tom grabs Alan's rifle and, using his teachings, manages to kill Fanton from a distance. While the box with the samples drifts away in the water, Alan tells Tom that the new century belongs to the new generation, and then he dies as well. Sometime later, the League buries Alan with his family in Africa, and Tom leaves the rifle on the grave. The group decides to continue being a team and set off to start a new adventure. As they walk away, the shaman from Alan's story appears to begin his ritual, causing the grave to tremble.